as a plastic material or, I'm using plastic so you can get an understanding. There are various type polymers. Your hair is a polymer.
Okay.
But whenever you bring in small units and link them up together, you get a larger unit that normally will have properties of the small unit, but a character different in itself.
Okay.
So the rubber on your tire, the tires on your car, that rubber is a polymer. It's made from small units like ethylene, propylene gases, and you put them together and they make the polymers. Neoprene, isoprene, all of these are small, these are made from small molecular units.
Okay.
It comes from oil.
Okay, so it's different molecular units, and when they hook up, they become melanin or whatever else. Other kind of polymers.
In the case of melanin, it's basically the precursors or the started materials are normally amino acid, carotenes, endorphins, like your melatonins, your serotonins, your norepinephrines, your epinephrines, dopamines. Those are some of the precursors of melanin. When it comes to, say, rubber or plastics, you can start with ethylene gas. Everybody's familiar with your polyethylene trash bags. Well, you basically start with ethylene gas to get polyethylene. But once it becomes a polymer, then it becomes a solid, and you can see it, and it has certain properties in itself. So depending on what you want to make, that will determine what starting materials you start with.
All right, y'all. Now, you never say we can give you something to make you go, Okay. What made you look into melanin, further than the norm that was being done? Yeah.
Well, I think it was a part of spiritual thing, and the fact that it was constantly being put in front of me in the form of books and articles. And then secondly, I guess it was during that time I had a project in the lab to develop an antioxidant system, a heat stabilized system to protect a rubber material that we were trying to introduce. Well, it had been introduced to the marketplace, but we were trying to break into another marketplace. And one of the specifications that the customer had was that it withstand a certain amount of heat over a period of, say, a couple of weeks. So that was the test that we had to put it against. And of course, if I had the project, I had to go back and look at what are the things that protect rubber and plastic material from degradation under heat. And my literature search, of course, you're a scientist, you go and search the literature for things like that work. And then you go from there. And melanin kept popping up as an antioxidant that can stabilize rubber or plastic material. So that meant that somebody had looked at it before, and its chemical structure and the way it was would terminate free radicals or stop oxidation. So the polymer wouldn't break down and back into its smaller units. So I purchased some and put it in our plastic material, and it worked like a charm. It just was very expensive. We didn't use it because it made the product too expensive.
You purchased some melanin?
Yeah, you can buy synthetic melanin from your normal, small lab suppliers. They will have, melanin like that. And I think this was back in the mid-'70s. So it was about, I would say, $100 for a few grams. Yeah. So we looked at it.
Valuable,
we exposed it to about 300 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 weeks. We measured the properties before you expose it, and then you measure the properties afterwards. And we have various tests that we would run before and afterwards. And basically, the very critical ones, like elongation, that lets you know if the material is broken down. You stretch it, if it snaps real quick and doesn't elongate after that heating period, then that means that the polymer has started to break down. So you lose properties. But the melanin system was essentially no significant change. So again, the performance was very, very good, but it was too costly to put into the product. So we had to go and find something else that worked halfway decent and was lower cost.
All right. So you started off with that research, and then you tied it into...
But the spiritual thing part that I mentioned earlier, it just so happens that while I was doing that work, or during the same time, You're going about your work, you're going shopping, you're purchasing things here and there, you're reading certain magazines and all, things. You open a magazine and here is information on melanin. You close it back up, you go on, you come back and you say, wow, I thought I saw that somewhere before. And here's the word melanin again. So it's constantly being thrown at you. And, I just assumed that, it's one of those spiritual things. That was
the ancestors were telling you, hey, melanin is melanin.
Right.
All right.
And I think for the first 3 or 4 years, I basically was doing a lot of library research, educating myself on it because I had heard such a small amount about it, and here I was an adult in corporate America and didn't know but a very small amount about melanin, other than the fact that it was a pigment and that it was in our skin and hair and eye. That was it. And basically looked at it as a negative thing. But once I got into the literature and started seeing all of the technical reports that was written, they were talking all of these positive things that this molecule did. And I said, well, wait a minute. This is not what, we think of ourselves. We think of this thing as being kind of negative here, or curse or whatever. And they're saying that it scavenges free radicals, it protects you from the sun, it has superconduction capabilities, it absorbs electromagnetic energy, just a host of things that are chemical and physical properties that, if could be harvested, could be used in a product purpose for improving life somehow. Developing products around the chemistry of the melanin molecules is a great thing, I think.
Okay. Well, where is melanin stored in our bodies, and what does it do? I mean, what is the function, specifically speaking?
Well, in some areas, they, like the skin, they pretty much know that it's a UV absorber, a very, very good UV absorber. In fact, it absorbs in the region where your most damaging energy is, and that's down in the UV regions, anywhere from 240 up to about 390, somewhere in there. And they divide that region up into 3 regions. It's called UVA, UVB, and UVC. UVB is the most damaging region, and that's the region where melanin appears to do its most absorbing. In other words, it has its greatest strength. Because, of course, you want it to absorb so the harmful energy won't get to the proteins and start destroying the DNA. So there's a lot of sense there. In other words, nature knew what it was doing when it says, okay, we want this molecule to absorb this light in this region because this is where the highest energy is, and if this DNA is sensitive to it, it'll just be destroyed if it's irrigated too much or irradiated too much with the light. So the other thing too is melanin is it's located in regions in the body that has high activity, high energy activity, like in the eyes, in the skin, in the inner ear with the transduction of sound, and the iris and the retina of the eye where light energy enters the eye before it's processed and sent to the brain. Throughout the gastrointestinal tract and the viscerals in the organ is also soluble melanin that's flowing through your bloodstream. It appears to be in every major region throughout the body, including the cells. And then you come to a cluster of regions, say like specific organs that tend to be black in nature, have high concentrations of melanin, where they have a specific job to function. And that's one of the ones where we're dealing with, and it's called the locus ceruleus and the substantia nigra, which is located in the brain. And, Dr. King talks a lot about the unconscious nature realm that the locus coeruleus take you into.
Okay, so that's something that's useful in meditation, say?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And it's kind of black and it has a heavy melanin concentration.
Right. That area, as well as the substantia nigra, are heavily pigmented with melanin.
That's deep. Okay, take you to other realms. And I noticed you said in the inner ear too, and we were doing some, I think it was the 3rd or 4th week of our series, we did some research on the inner ear and how it's really a conducer and it oscillates, and it's really supposed to be able to hear like sounds from not just physical sounds, but other sounds like clairaudience and that kind of thing. But
Well, one of the things on the hearing thing, they have evidence to show that if you listen to music over a period of time at a certain volume, the melanocytes in the inner ear that produces the melanin behaves like the melanocytes in the skin, where they increase their production of melanin. In other words, the inner ear becomes tan, if you want to look at it that way. It produces more melanin, and as a result of the vibrational energies coming into it constantly. So that is for sure. And also, I've seen pictures of the melanocytes that with the tentacles, the melanin tentacles into the blood vessels inside the inner ear, an actual photograph, and it shows where, and who knows why the melanocyte appears to be secreting melanin into the bloodstream. Now we know that there's soluble melanins or lower molecular weight melanins that's circulating in the bloodstream. They're called real melanins. But to actually see a picture of a melanocyte with its tentacles into the vein, that's different from the melanocyte in the skin that's sending melanin to the surface of the skin. So inside the body, there's a lot of work going on to make melanin and keep it distributed throughout the body in a nice way. And even though we're talking a lot on the body and we always want to know about that.
are we getting to the spiritual? We just get this out of the way.
Well, one of the things that you have to really understand about this, in order to explain the spiritual part of it, you have to get into the electromagnetic explanations of it. And it could get really involved without some slides to show you what is happening.
Oh, they got good imaginations down this. The
electromagnetic waves, the electromagnetism is similar to, organs picking up electromagnetic waves given off by certain chemicals in the body. These things can be felt. This is energy. Just say, for instance, your radio station here. Mm-hmm. You have an instrument that's making a certain frequency of electromagnetic waves, and you're sending it out, transmitting it across the city here. Okay, well, we know also that certain chemicals can send off electromagnetic waves, and they also can receive electromagnetic waves. Well, if you have a mass of chemicals that, under the right conditions of vibrational music, chants, rhythms, or whatever, they are taken to a higher state where they give off these electromagnetic waves or have the ability to take it on, then this provides the host of the body with a way of going to the transphysical. Mm-hmm. And another thing too is that when a lot of these type things happen, say vibrational sound, color patterns, movement, rhythms, where all your senses are stimulated, then the body produces new chemicals and dump them into the bloodstream. Very teeny tiny amounts of these endorphins are very, very strong, very, very powerful, and they send you to a high state, they send you to a high awareness.
That endorphin, that's like a natural, for lack of a better word, a natural drug that manufactures in the brain, is it?
Endorphins it's an endolamine. It's, I guess you would think of it like an amino acid, but it's an endorphin. And these are feel-good type. Mm-hmm. You've heard of the feel-good type of chemicals that are there. Well, the body make those all the time. But at the same time, some of these feel-good chemicals made by the body are very hallucinogenic. And so within the natural realms of your system, where you don't have to go outside and use, narcotics or whatever to get you up there, your body produces the narcotics as a result of the stimulation from the outside. Stimulation of vibrational sounds, the color patterns in dance, the movement of bodies, because that stimulates your vision, and then also the melanin operating in a highly efficient way where it tends to pick up vibrational sounds at the lowest frequencies and kick the energies or the electrons in its lowest the lowest orbitals to the higher orbitals. So what happened is the person is constantly being lifted and lifted and lifted to a higher state, and then all of a sudden, boom, a new chemical is produced, in the body, and that new chemical tranquilize the person or send the person to a higher transphysical state. And therefore you see shouting, or you see speaking in tongue, or you see revelation, etc. So what you have is the spirituality happening.
Oh, okay, so that explains what happens when people are said to go into trance and that kind of thing.
Right.
On a technical level.
Right.
Thank you. We would have probably never known that, Brother Carrol, if you hadn't explained it to us.
And that's one of the reasons why I think a good, nice research project that could be a central research lab, Melanin research lab, with a study of things that are common to the black community. If you get a trend and a pattern happening in your society, then that means that it's something true about that trend and pattern. So why don't you study it to find out what its true meanings are? If you go to the black church and monitor the people who just take blood samples of the individuals who shout in church or speak in tongue or become highly spiritual, and try to determine what new chemical is produced in the body when that person shouts or reach that spiritual state. Then you may be able to go back and separate that chemical from the bloodstream, make that new chemical, and use it in the body or use it in society to help the population be of a higher state. That could get very political, but
Yeah, well, we don't think we want to market our stuff like that, okay?
Well,
if you got it, you got it good. If you don't, hey, mother, Jaja know what he was doing, you know what I'm saying? You either got it or you don't. Okay.
Well, one of the things, I guess you could look at it that way. You have to go through the rituals to get it.
To try to create, to correct nature.
Yeah, you go through the rituals to get it. So, but that's one of the things that would be interesting to know. And then to achieve that state, what do you do? When you learn what parameters causes the individual to achieve that state, and you're able to reproduce it over and over again, then the other thing would be, what are the medicinal properties of these chemicals once they are produced? Once you shout in church, once you speak in tongue, does this new chemical have anti-cancer properties? Does it enlighten your mental state? Does it give you better health? How does it, those are some things that could be answered. And so you never know. You might want to separate it, analyze it. If it has a good property about itself, you could, it could be a drug for fighting cancer or something like that. So
I know it.
There are a lot of different states, a lot of different things that you may have heard your grandparents say after a religious session that needs to be looked into after they've gone through this and documented. And that's what I'm saying. Little simple things like that to do development work on. But then other services, methods for treating people. Say, for instance, the fact that melanin lacks to bind with cocaine. Okay, once a black person get hooked on cocaine, how do you get the cocaine separated from the melanin again? Well, we got lab tests to show that melanin and cocaine reacts and love each other and stay bound together so strongly till it is what people use to measure other drugs by as far as their affinity towards melanin. So we would have to develop a method for getting black people off drugs, because we know that the cocaine and LSD tend to have high affinity for the melanin system.
So you're saying cocaine, that's an ain, and melanin is an yin, and does that have something to do with why they so,
Yeah, they're in the same family, but both are alkaloids, and if you really think about it, melanin itself is a feel-good chemical, so you don't really have to go out there and use these other things. Melanin tends to like cocaine because it's in the same family. It has we're happy all the time. We're in this normal state that we call normal. But what is this normal civilized state where we feel good even in the most hardest time, the most troubled time? Black people tend to find a way to survive. And so you see, there are a lot of little small questions that's come up on this thing. And I've thought really in depth about a lot of them. I have a lot of things outlined as far as research programs that could be instituted already on paper All we need is the resources.
Well, brother, if we could just be sure it was going to be a brother like you doing that kind of research and stuff. But we know that we can know some other people probably get a hold to that, and it'd be like, we'd have to be buying our own melanin for us over.
Well,
At $200 a gram and whatnot.
Well, you can make melanin synthetically. There's no big secret about making it synthetically.
Ain't nothing like the real thing. No, you know that, right?
No, it's not like the real thing. The other thing too is working with it. There's a way of bringing the system together to work with it. So just having it and not knowing how to work with it is completely different. Melanin is also in the environment. I want to tell you that. It's in the water, it's in streams, it's in the ground, it's in rivers. A lot of your plants, plant life, have melanin precursors in melanin. So it's not just in humans. I mean, it's nature intended it to be a general purpose system throughout its entire self.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Sure, if you've broken a banana open, and you watch it turn dark on you. Well, that's the dopamine polymerizing from the oxygen in the air that you breathe. It causes the dopamine to polymerize into melanin. And when you take a bite of an apple, and the apple will sit there and turn yellow at first, and then brown, and then black. Well, that's the small units making the large units melanin.
Oh. My mother always says she won't, when I buy her bananas or she buys some, she won't eat them until they turn brown. Mm-hmm. She said that's when they're ready.
Right. There's a small amount of work that says that the melanin, the bananas that are beginning to turn brown on you tend to be better for you.
Yes, for sure.
Right. Probably because you got more quinones in it. When they go from quinones. Dopamines go to the quinones, and then that's an intermediate, and then polymerizes into the final structure. The quinones are more medicinal. They're known for having medicine properties.
You might have to write a little beginner's book on this thing, Brother Carrol, break down all these little terms for us so we can know what's going on.
Yeah, and then, maybe, with the slideshow and everything, I can show it. The structure's better.
Well, that's true. Now, people will be able to get a better understanding of it tomorrow at Florence Jackson Academy, where you will be speaking starting at 5 o'clock p.m. Florence Jackson is, for those who don't know, is located at 1581 Fairburn Road, and their number is 344-1030. That's 344-1030 if you'd like to get more information on that. So you do have slides and stuff that reemphasizes what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Here.
I have, state-of-the-art graphs table, color slides to outline all of these things. We was talking about the environment a few minutes ago, of melanin being in the environment. You can basically go to any little creek in Georgia or Mississippi or Alabama, and you can take a sample of water, and you'll find that there's at least 2 parts per million soluble melanins in that water. You can take groundwater. If you dig into the soil, you can take water samples from the soil, and you'll find that there's melanin there, and you'll also find that there's melanin in the soil. And so there's quite a bit of literature on the lakes across the U.S. Where they have been analyzed. And say, for instance, let me give you an example. If I found a particular lake in Alabama, and say it's 20 feet deep and maybe 100 feet long, well, you can go in and study the melanin at various depths in that lake, and I've seen several reports where things like this have been done, where they they track it from season to season, winter, spring, fall, and at various depths in the lake, what types of melanin are there, and the charge state, how active are they. So you may go down 5 feet and take a sample. You may find out you basically have low molecular weight melanins. But then if you go down near the bottom, you may find that the melanins are much, much more larger or have polymerized more. What type of effect does this have on the fish life that's in that water? Those are some questions to ask. Why is it necessary? Well, why is it that nature have melanins that near the surface to be a lower molecular weight, and the ones closer to the bottom, higher molecular weight? And then how from spring to summer to fall, there are graphs to show that the concentration goes up and down depending on what season it is.
Check it out.
Right. So it's an involved thing.
And so nature has put melanin in almost everything.
Well, quite a few things.
Not
Now,
everything, I say almost.
There are some things that you find that don't have melanin or have a different type melanin, and you find that the albino systems normally don't have melanin or a different type melanin. And what we found is that these lower molecular weight melanins that tend to have cysteine polymerized into the structure does not perform as well, don't have the high temperature properties for sure that say the U melanin or the high molecular weight melanins does. So what I'm trying to say is that, say for instance, if you take a red chicken, the chicken feather of a red chicken will have a pheomelanin. Most pheomelanins are yellow to red, and they are low molecular weight. Then you go into the black hair, and you take that melanin out, that melanin tends to be eumelanin types. So the different color patterns that you see in the animal kingdom also is influenced by melanin.
So, okay, that's good. That leads me to my next question. So, with these various states of melanin, does melanin have an influence on how we behave, how we are able to learn, our spirituality, that kind of thing?
I think
as
the
opposed
rhythm
to a lack of it.
I think the rhythm pattern that melanin is able to absorb tend to work with the learning approach. One of the things that I know is that you have some of your major communication companies who are actually working on organic molecules similar to melanin as a way of storing information and getting away from the silicon approach. Sand is 99.9% pure silicon dioxide, and that's what the computer industry used.
And our bloodstream is made up basically the same.
Yeah, but if you think about it, nature did not use sand for your brain. It used organic materials.
For the brain, yeah. Okay.
For the brain.
Okay.
So why should you use sand for the brain? The best thing to use is an organic material. What organic material work? And I feel that, this is just the theory of mine, I feel that information is stored in the melanin that's in the brain. Okay, because to me it's a perfect molecule for storing information. Okay, and we know that the brain is saturated with melanin. And then in some areas, it's just a whole black area. These highly functional areas is just black, but then the brain itself has melanin scattered throughout it. So why is it there? We know that it's not there to protect the brain from sunlight since sun don't get there. So it's got to be performing another function.
So you're saying like the cerebral cortex is like heavily concentrated with melanin?
Yes.
As opposed to the lower?
And the spinal cord has melanin in it also. So the entire central nervous system arises or have its origin from a melanated center.
Let me ask you this then. Has any research been done to the extent that to see if it's more melanin on the left side of the brain as opposed to the right side?
Well, I haven't looked at it that way as left versus right, but just brain matter as a whole tend to have melanin scattered throughout it.
Well,
and then in certain areas of the brain, there's quite a bit more, like the substantia nigra. In fact, it's so black they use this Latin name to call it black substance. Substantia nigra means black substance.
Okay.
So there's quite a bit there. And you can easily, there are tests that you can run on. You can take the brain and slice it up, down the middle, anywhere, and then you can take it and run certain staining tests, and it will tell you,
what's up,
what's there.
Okay, the reason I asked is because a lot of research has been done to show that we as African people are more right-brained. We use the right side, which is more picture-oriented type thing, as opposed to the left brain, which is more analytical and da-da-da-da. So I was just wondering what the ratio was.
I personally feel that school system need to adopt a more arithmetic way of teaching, because the visual show me type of way of training
it works.
It works, yeah.
That's why I was wondering.
The stimulation that you get is not necessarily seeing the brain, but the vibrational the vibrations that comes from the music or the patterns that you're sending to the child who's trying to learn is not necessarily picked up by his eye, but the melanin in his system will pick up those vibrational sounds and carry it inside its structure. So it could be storing memory within each melanin granule. You see?
Okay. I've also heard and did a little reading as to the pineal gland. I had a sister tell me one time that we should really try to sit in the sun and absorb as much as we can because it does something to the pineal gland, which is the third eye. A lot of people call it third eye. And I also heard that was a heavily concentrated melanin area.
Yeah, it's
So
the pineal.
how does that work?
The pineal make several endorphins, like your melatonin and your serotonin, that eventually ends up as melanin itself. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of information written on the pineal and the fact that it has melanin in it, and it also contains lots of precursors to melanin. So you would expect that it should have an interaction with melanin for some reason. I don't know what frequency or what electromagnetic energy excites the pineal gland, but I personally feel that the pineal and the melanin works very, very close together as a transducer. Both of them sending information, receiving, sending, receiving, and they work together as a way of processing that, helping to lift you to a higher spiritual state.
Yeah, that's what we all want to know. How do we do that?
And you might notice that I go from the scientific to the spiritual, back to the scientific to the spiritual, because for me, I don't separate the two. The interaction is so close. But in order to explain the two, I need visual aids to show how they come together.
Okay, well, this is just a little dab. We expect for them to come out to Florence Jackson tomorrow for the full works.
Sure.
We can't give it all to them tonight because we do want to open up the phones and probably take a couple of phone calls from people.
No problem.
I do have one more question, though, just to add closure to those people who aren't able to call and may have these same questions. What can we do then to better utilize, two-part question. What can we do to better utilize the melanin that we do have? And for those of us who might not have as much as we think we want, what can we do to get more? Just sit in the sun?
Well, to better utilize it, you find that one of the problems that you have with diseases and problems that we have, period, health-wise, is with melanin is not operating in its finest state or in an optimized state. So the best thing you can do is try to optimize your melanin. Sitting in the sun more, absorbing that energy more, eating the right types of food, more vegetarian type diets, that type thing will help to get your melanin in order. Not using toxic drugs. If you take melanin itself and stimulate melanin, you already have a system that is a built-in feel-good type system. You just got to know how to stimulate it and make it work. One of the things that I know works well is orange juice. Orange juice is a natural drink that you drink in the morning time. Well, what you need to do is not drink it in the morning, but drink it at a different time of day. Drink it at night. And if you drink it at night, it will tend to enhance those effects. When you say people who don't have a lot, I think as a whole, when you talk black community, the black community, you got to look at it this way. On a scale of 1 to 10, the entire body wants to be black. But what nature never makes anything 100%. You may get 8 out of 10 of those organs that are black. But most of the time, black people will have the outer skins and inner organs black. When you don't, you have either a small touch of albinism or you have albinism or whatever you want to call that. A person who may have black skin can have an organ on the inside that is an albino organ that's supposed to have melanin in it, but you never will see it. So you have to be careful in dealing with, well, I have more than you have. You got to deal with, on a scale of 1 to 10, do you have 7 or 8 organs pigmented, or do you have 5? And most of the time you find that as you have more organs pigmented, the lower your chance of being ill. As these systems get unpigmented, then you increase your chance of certain illnesses. And of course, one case in point, you take the skin. Everybody can relate to that. You start taking the melanin out of your skin, you catch skin cancer quicker. Everybody knows that. Well, go into each organ in the body and start looking at each individual organ. How does your intestines perform when they have high, low, or no melanin in it? How does your heart perform if it has a reduced amount of melanin? You see what I'm saying? So knowing what is the correct amount, what is the state these melanins like to be in, and the types, then we have to get on top of that so we can help optimize our health. I feel that right now, I don't feel anybody's in the position to tell you, well, your melanin needs to be in this particular state. I think once we do the research and find out what particular state it needs to be in, then we can institute methods, certain things into society, certain diets, etc. So the society or the people in the society can start following these diets or following these conditions or following these things to help bring the melanin centers back into optimization. This may mean getting a certain amount of sunlight every day. It could mean going to what we call church and having certain rhythm sessions to activate. It may mean listening to a certain amount of music, this type thing. But if the scientists come up with it and they show the officials that this is what happened and this is what works, then you have a way of putting this back into the system and making it work for you. If melanin get out of order, then you will suffer. It's as simple as that.
It's like being diabetic. You can have some kind of melanic disease. Your melanin is out of whack.
There's, if you look at the chemical structure of melanin, you can see actually the portopyrin ring that actually is part of hemoglobin. If it breaks open, it can become part of the melanin molecule. And if you look at that structure right there in the front of you, you see the one on the left side. You see the rings there on the left side. That was part of the hemoglobin, which is blood. But we have it polymerized into the structure of the molecule. So, and then there are a lot of things like that going on. I know a professor here in Atlanta who is interested in trying to show the connection between sickle cell and melanin and the fact that it may be deficient melanin that's helping to cause the problem.
Okay, well, I think Bobby Hemmett told us last week that sickle cell wasn't really a problem. So we don't know. We just still out here checking it out. I think what we'll do right here now is take a little quick break, and then we'll come forward and open up the airwaves and see if the listeners have some questions for you, brother.
Sure.
Want to remind everyone, though, that Brother Carrol Barnes will be speaking on tomorrow at Florence Jackson Academy. Florence Jackson is located at 1581 Fairburn Road. The phone number there is 344-1030. That's 344-1030. The lecture will begin at 5 o'clock p.m. and go until the Spirit says it's time to go, I imagine.
Sure.
All right.
No problem. All questions answered.
All right. Okay, that's good. I'm sure you have a lot of questions because this is definitely new material for a lot of us. Brother also has a book called Melanin, the chemical key to black greatness, and it deals with the harmful effects of toxic drugs on melanin centers within the black human. And I hope that you'll have plenty of these available for sale tomorrow.
Quite a few.
Nice, very good book too. I wanted to. It's very heavily illustrated, and it really breaks it down. You take your time. Brother has done a very good job. I think you can understand it. But come out tomorrow and hear him speak, and then get the book, and you really have a head start on the whole melanin situation. You'll be ahead of anybody in your neighborhood. Hold tight. And 8, 9, and we're gonna give it a shot. Greetings, you're on there live with WRFG. Greetings. Oh God, it's gonna be one of those kind of night things. All right, hold tight. Let's see what we can do about this.